Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to start. If you could take your conversations to the back. My name is, good evening, everyone.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Very nice. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being quiet. I'm glad you're staying for this second session because it's going to be amazing. Our topic is Hollywood in VR, opportunities at the intersection of content and technology. My name is Robert Nashak. I'm the COO of a virtual reality startup called Survios. Our goals for this panel are simple. What we want to do is cut through the bull and answer the question, what's really going on in Hollywood around VR and AR? What's happening today? What's happening in the near future? And I must say, to answer this question, we've assembled what I consider a dream team panel. So without further ado, I'm going to ask each panelist just to quickly introduce themselves. And after that, we'll do a little bit more of a deep dive into their background. Ted?
Hi, everybody. I'm Ted. I work for 20th Century Fox. Thanks for the applause. That's very sweet. I'm their futurist and all-around big kid.
Hi, my name is Brad Herman, and I run Dream Lab at DreamWorks Animation, and we focus on mobile, immersive, and interactive technology and storytelling.
Also a big kid, trust me.
Yeah,
we're like two
big
kids.
Kid, not just because the wide, but you know, fan.
Hi, I'm Peter Levin. I head up ventures and gaming at Lionsgate. I can guarantee you I have a better action figure collection and comic book collection.
I can challenge that.
Yeah.
Oh, I will pick that challenge up. You don't want none.
My name is Morris May, and I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Specular Theory. We create virtual reality content.
Great. So we'll learn more about this in just 2 seconds. I just wanted to tee up what's going on right now in the VR landscape. 2015, it's the year VR went from concept to category. There was so much buzz around VR at CES, at the Game Developers Conference, at even NAB most recently, Sundance, of course, the Tribeca Film Festival. And these are just some of the headlines you've been reading. And I must say the momentum is actually being replicated in recent sort of projections on how fast VR is going to grow. DigiCapital just 2 weeks ago came out with a report that sees VR and AR revenue growing to $150 billion by 2020. VR and film alone, they project will hit $5 billion by 2020. So we'd love to test those assumptions with our panelists today, and we do hope that they'll come to lots of disagreement. And most importantly, we want to turn it over to you the audience for questions, because this is a smart audience, we can tell. So given that context, I would love to ask Ted to just tell us a little bit about what he's been doing in the VR and AR space.
Sure. So we at Fox, and me, take a fairly broad view of what a lot of people call VR, and we refer to as immersion. So VR has a necessity of telling people that you're going to put something physical on your face, which is a very valuable sector of what immersion is, but it is not the only one by any stretch of the imaginations. If any of you have been to a theme park in your life, you have been to a concept of virtual reality. So part of our work is exploring the future of the cinema experience, the group experience. A lot of people are thinking that, there's always this death call of the group experience, but you all are in a group setting and wanting to connect. And that's a very valuable part of it. So with another technology company called Barco that I'm also working with, that's the big movie projector company, we're working on essentially theme parking every cinema in the world and taking what is traditionally what we always sort of expect the movies to be, which is like a thing in front of us. Someone hung a bed sheet 100 years ago and said, this is the way movies are going to be. And it's always just sort of stayed that way. But there's a lot better technology now that allows us to expand that vision into an immersion sense. Thanks for whoever's clapping there. I know Brad's been touching that as well, as we explore things that are appropriate for putting on a headset and where it doesn't make sense to put on a headset and you need to put a whole bunch of people in VR or AR at the same time. So that's part of what we're doing. That's the non-headset version. The other side of our life, if you go to the next picture there, is VR. And so we have sort of a fledgling VR division at 20th Century Fox. The place where we work out of has been nicknamed the VR Bunker, which if you read about it in the press, you'd think we built the fucking Bat Cave, because everybody's like, oh, you got to go to the VR Bunker. It's like the coolest place in the world. It's just got like 4 steps down. Brad's been there. And so, you know, and it's just a room with a whole bunch of monitors and a crap load of VR headsets. And that's the VR Bunker. So it's a lot more sexy when you read about it. And I don't just reveal what it really is, but it's our lab and it's our place where we play. And there's these kind of musketeers of VR that we work with that are pretty high up in the food chain at Fox. And 20th Century Fox has become very enamored with what could be the future of entertainment based on some of my experimentation and lab rat work. So that's
Do you want to
where we're
just
at.
really quickly describe what we're watching
Sure.
here?
So what you're seeing here is actually a grab from a 360 virtual experience that we think was the first time that we actually had major motion picture stars in a dedicated virtual reality experience. It was done by a very talented group of young men named Felix and Paul out of Canada, and they deserve a round of applause. They're terrific. And they specialize in very, very high-end, very focused 360 immersion video. So we shot a piece with Reese Witherspoon and Laura Dern specifically for VR. It became a bit of a sensation when we showed it for the first time at CES, and the story wasn't about look how cool all those 4K televisions are. The story was look at what 20th Century Fox is doing to explore this new medium of entertainment. And it was our first experiment. Since then, the very, very highest levels of the executives at Fox, way above my pay grade, have essentially given us a big, wide license to go explore any kind of VR experience we want for all of the Fox IP in all of its forms across all of the divisions. And that's what we're doing. So the next project we're working on is something for Ridley Scott called The Martian, which is a terrific book, by the way, if you haven't had a chance to read it.
What was magical in this scene? 2 seconds. Like, it was a very special use of VR.
Yeah, a lot of people have seen it, and a lot of people come out of it that have spent a lot of time in VR and said, this is the best thing I've ever seen in VR, which is a good compliment. I actually don't necessarily agree with that compliment, but I think it's a great compliment. It was very, very refined, and it was very focused on feeling like you were actually there with those characters in the moment. And that's what makes it special. There are also some interactive moments in it that are essentially hidden inside the story. So a big part of my exploration in all this is I believe that the tide, and a lot of you probably understand this as well, is very much changing in terms of passive entertainment versus interactive entertainment, and where future generations are going to go. I know you're deep into this too. Is that interactivity is going to become a main part of the focus of the future of entertainment. So we had some experiments within interactivity here that you wouldn't know are interactive unless we told you, but things happen that wouldn't happen unless you looked in certain places.
That's great. Thank you very much. Let's turn to Brad now from DreamWorks.
Hi, everybody. So DreamLab, it's an idea I had almost 3 years ago, and it was really about how do we take the most cutting edge technology out there and fuse that with DreamWorks' amazing storytelling expertise to create new consumer-facing experiences, to create the next generation of entertainment. Where could we possibly go? Where's the market going to go, and how can we get there first? Thankfully for us, our CTO and Jeffrey Katzenberg believed in the idea. And for the last 3 years, we've been making really cool things and taking them out on tour and really trying to find what sticks, what works with people. The picture you're seeing here is an early 3D printed Oculus Rift headset from our Dragonflight ride. This is a ride that we took on a nationwide tour a year and a half ago. We put over 10,000 people through this ride. It was a marketing experience for How to Train Your Dragon 2. And we really tried to see what worked, what didn't. We put young and old through it. A lot of people, certainly their first time through VR. And we got a lot of research out of it. We got a lot of data that we could actually crunch and bring back. And it gave us a really wonderful experience of working with our filmmakers and exposing them to what is VR. How can this be a new medium for storytelling? So what you're seeing right now is kind of where we've transitioned to. The first piece you saw was running in a game engine. It was very interactive. You could really control everything you were doing. It was only 81 seconds long. It's, you know, we were able to move people about 3 minutes from sit down to the next person sitting down. And it was designed as like a theme park ride that went on tour. Now we've been working more on narrative, more on character, using our next generation tool set from animation and doing pre-rendered experiences that we're layering interactivity onto. So we're going to show you a video here that's some of our, not that. That's
a
it.
good piece too.
It's a good piece too. We're going to show you this. So let's see if this rolls. Got it. Yeah, I can do it. It's all good.
Thanks.
All right. Hopefully we have sound. We'll see here. And we'll find out in a second. It'll queue up. So playing. Oh no, it's just playing backwards. So the actual video, the actual footage itself is 6K. It plays back in 60 frames per second, and it's rendered with our DreamWorks pipeline. It's into a proprietary format we have called Super Cinema. That is a new immersive format. It's designed to be compressible, streamable, and come down to headsets in a really nice way, but it gives you really immersive and interactive experiences. So looks like we're running about 10 frames per second here on this laptop. Give them a smaller file next time. So from here for us, it's really about now working with the filmmakers, working with our sort of matrix of creativity in our lab of technicians, artists, engineers, and storytellers on figuring out what works and what doesn't, and where's the market going to be 6 months from now? Where's it going to be a year from now? And also how we can use the tools we're building to help enable others to actually create content like we do and create amazing content that represents not only the studios that these people might be from, but also content that represents the individuals we want to eventually enable with some of this tool set. Aside from that, from the VR space, we actually do a whole lot in mixed reality and AR as well. We think those are tremendous growth opportunities. We've been working on mobile apps, on things we've already been putting out there now, on things that are coming later this year. As a whole, we've done 75 projects in the last 3 years, and a lot of them fail. And I think that's actually one of the best parts about this is you try something and move quickly, you test it. You really have to put it in front of 300 people. And if they like it, great, move forward. But if they don't, you can't be just attached to it. You have to kill it and move on and find the next thing that is going to work. So that's really what we try to do in the lab.
Great. Thanks, Brad. Okay, turning to Peter. That's all I got.
Okay, no, that's fine. I was checking out my own slide. Sweet. So our focus in the area of VR and AR, there's a marketing and promotional component to it. So the slide up here, Insurgent, was put together, spearheaded by our digital marketing team, really well received. We took it out nationally, tremendous amount of buzz around it. And we will continue to explore these kinds of marketing and promotion exercises. My mandate, in particular on the ventures and game side of what we're doing, is to create commercial and monetizable experiences within VR and AR. And we see this as a very unique environment for narrative, for filmmakers, for storytellers, to a very contextual audience, to be able to reach them in a way that when you look at the ability to give them an HD, 4K, 3D immersive experience that's affordable. When you talk about the numbers, the revenue numbers, that are projected by 2020, which is always a little bit laughable when you see these graphs that are in 2020, there's going to be $1 gajillion in revenue. But it is a little bit of the inversion of kind of the 3D hype from a couple of years ago, where, for the average person to spend $300, $400, $500 to be able to have that HD, 4K, 3D, fully immersive experience of whether it's a traditional media experience, within a themed environment, which we're spending a lot of time on. We're spending a lot of time on the gamification of our intellectual property in VR environments. We were part of that, the early messaging that the HTC and Valve partnership that was announced at the Mobile Congress a couple months ago. Ourselves and HBO, we're going to be exploring 2 or 3 opportunities with those folks, which, as far as we're concerned, that's some of the bleeding edge, best of breed, VR experiences out there. And by the way, you guys at Servios are doing some kick-ass stuff. So although you're the moderator, these guys are doing, yay, Servios.
Yeah. Thanks, Peter.
But no joke. So I think for us and myself in particular, not representing the marketing and promotion side of our house, which I think are as good as it gets. But on that always happens in kind of the nascent platforms and environments. Big media tends to say, okay, well, we're going to throw a lot of promotion and marketing at that. And use that as the Petri dish, and we are doing exactly that. But at the same time, our younger creators, in particular, our writers and producers and directors, they're the ones that are coming to us and saying, whether it's the IP that you guys are currently producing and developing, or whether it's in your catalog. Because if you think about properties like Saw, which just scares the shit out of me, the idea of having like a saw, right? I would never put that headset on. There's no effing way. It's not going to happen. You laugh, but it's not. So,
It could happen.
really? Thanks. But the idea of that and others within, our catalog, lots of creators are coming at us saying, we want to play with that. And, our response is, let's play. But, at the same time, let's play, and then let's make a business out of that, because what we don't want to be, again, I referenced earlier, I do think VR is a bit of the inversion of 3D, which was a tremendous amount of hype in terms of the consumer experience in their home and through a personal device. A lot of hype and underwhelming and under-indexing on the consumer experience. And I think VR is just the opposite, which is the products are just incredible. I mean, not all of them are there yet, but there's a handful that are just mind-blowing. And then it's about the roadmap to marketability, time to market, how do you reach critical mass and make a real business out of it. So we spent a lot of cycles on that side of it.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Peter. Let's turn now to Morris and tell us about specular theory.
Absolutely. So we create VR. That's all we do is create virtual reality. We have kind of like a sandbox kind of scenario like Fox, where we invite people in to do things. We also make tools to do VR. That's a big topic lately. I'll expand on that briefly. Some of the obvious things, tools, like the cameras and the playback and the recording, are obvious, editing and things, but also tools to help you kind of share your virtual reality in different kind of platforms, tools to make sure that you're engaged in different ways. Actually, you could just back up one slide too. I'll show you the way that we work with people is on many different levels. We have about 8 projects in-house right now. Some are partnerships where we have people we partner with them who have IP, and we create virtual reality experiences with their IP in a partnership arrangement. Some of it's in-house productions. We have our own team that creates in-house. And I'll talk mostly about that and how it relates to Hollywood. And then we also just do work for hire, and a lot of stuff we do is just advertising kind of thing. So across the board, the gamut of VR kind of experiences. And we do that by a company that's completely VR driven. So we're not in any way in any one gamut of either storytellers or technicians or gamers, but we kind of from the ground up, a company to create VR. But what I really want to talk about here, if we guys go to the next couple slides, I'll talk about our Sundance projects just really briefly, because I know people are interested in. This is kind of an iconic moment. You can imagine what it's like to be at Sundance and to show your film to Robert Redford, and to get the responses of the film community and hear what they had to say and have them talk about it was just an unbelievable experience. And it testifies to what all we've been talking about, is this really is an absolute game-changing technology for storytelling. I mean, Robert Redford took that off and told me, this is unbelievable. Every person that came through and saw our experience wants to work in the medium, wants to create virtual reality experiences. So it's an incredibly great opportunity and exciting time for people. This is our in-house project called Perspectives. This is a series of short films, and they all deal with hot topic issues. Basically, you're one person's perspective. You see an event happen, and then you see that same event happen from another person's perspective. So it works really well as letting you be a character in a film and emotionally involved with other characters and act. So that's kind of the premise of that project. And just to testify what we've all been saying, this is a completely new medium that has an enormous amount of potential. We had every major news source come through. I won't read you these quotes, but telling us that this was the most incredible emotional experience they'd ever seen from a screen and whatnot. So to be one of the most talked about pieces at Sundance was just a testimony to what's. This is another one of our in-house projects called Paired. So this is interesting. Two interesting different performers are paired together in virtual reality, and you see that a virtual reality performance take place with two contrary type of performers. This is some of our press that we got. I wanted to show this. I'm really excited to show this. This is actually happening right now. We were contacted by the California State Assembly. They wanted to see perspective, and they flew down with a couple headsets. We showed the entire in Sacramento right now. They're actually watching the film with the entire Senate, Congress, and the Speaker of the House, and they wanted to see it. So it was a very exciting time for us.
That's what our state government's doing.
Actually, that's exactly what we're doing. If you want to
Feel good about that.
follow anything about VR, we're very active on Twitter, and we're very active in the community. So if you want to learn about VR, just follow us on Twitter, and we're very active in that kind of thing.
Excellent. Thank you, panelists. Now let's get to some questions, and I want to throw it to you as soon as possible. My first question is a very pointed one. Moving forward, how important will Hollywood be in driving widespread adoption of VR and AR? Before we discuss, you have to answer just 2 words. Not important, somewhat important, or very important.
Asking
Ted,
me is like
let's go
asking
down
the
to-
butcher how much meat
Do I
to
Let's see if we
really,
get
do I
in-
really, of course, very important.
Brad, any dissent?
Somewhat important.
Interesting. Peter.
We'll crush it.
It can't be
more.
stopped.
Peter.
It can't be stopped. Yeah.
Okay, Brad, you were the one dissenter. Why don't you start? Just why not the total enthusiasm?
I think Hollywood is going to be important, but probably not in the first wave. Realistically, with the cost of hardware and where things are over the next, say, 6 to 12 months, games are probably going to lead the pack. They're the easiest thing to adapt. It fits well. The content makes sense. And realistically, those are easier things to monetize with the structures that are in place. We're going to absolutely kill it in terms of marketing experiences, in terms of IP and brand, but it's not going to be stuff that's going to be inherently profitable. It's going to be stuff that we push out there as marketing. I think if you look a year, 2 years, 5 years down the road, that's when you can start looking at the hope that this actually replaces the declining DVD business, like where home video and home entertainment have really been changing, and what we all kind of remember from like the VHS and the early DVD days to now. This has an incredible value add and actually is something that consumers are willing to pay that kind of money for again. So I think we'll get there, but I think it's going to take a little while.
And what I'm doing on my side is my level-headed best to accelerate that curve that Brad is talking about to its fastest possible end, so that we're putting together the concepts and ideas of where the power of gaming is and interactive, and the power of really, really good, refined Hollywood storytelling, and bouncing them together as hard as we can to see what comes out of it. And I think it's coming faster than anybody anticipated. I think we're going to see pretty good success fast.
You know, I think eventually we will see the equivalent of the House of Cards of VR. A piece of content, an episodic series, something that's compelling enough to force people to fork out money for a headset and a subscription, or just a subscription if they have the headset already, you know, if it's just their cell phone. And that's going to be the thing that's really going to be the watershed moment, is when you have that piece of content that is enough to make somebody say, okay, I'm going to start paying for this service. And yeah, there's lots of other great stuff I get for it, but everyone's talking about this one thing, and I have to see that now.
Is that content going to come out of a Hollywood studio is my next question.
Baywatch VR.
Baywatch VR. Not bad. Any thoughts on the
when you
panel?
talk about, yeah, I mean, you quite possibly, right? So it harkens back to 2-3 years ago, right? Transmedia was all the rage, and I hate that term of art because it was like
Transmediocre is how we call it now.
that's right. So you're the producer, writer that didn't necessarily matriculate up to the mainstream consumption, and so you were doing it in these in between areas, and that was fine until the market matured. So you talk about House of Cards. When House of Cards came out, if you reflect back on the media attention, House of Cards was ridiculed for being $2-3 million over budget per episode, and yet not only did it prevail in the zeitgeist of popular culture, but within I think 3 or 4 quarters, the enterprise value of Netflix was up 1.1 or 1.2 billion dollars in enterprise value. That wasn't really written about in the media press, but so their shot on goal was such a big shot on goal because they brought on the best writers in the world. the best cast in the world and put a phenomenal show on a non-traditional platform that created an efficiency and less friction between the consumer and the producer. So VR is a bit of that on steroids potentially. So yeah, there's going to be some, cutesy, oh, that's an interesting experience, and I'm willing to pay, XYZ for it. But eventually, even on the game side, you're going, for the first time in the history of the games industry, you've got intellectual property producers and creators interacting with developers and publishers on the game side, and they're absolutely killing it together. And that's because of the engagement metrics, right? When you look at the top 25 titles on any of the marketplaces, whether it's Google Play, whether it's iTunes, and globally, if you look at China and there's 64 marketplaces, the coupling of IP, to lesser known developers and publishers on the game side, they represent somewhere between 25 and 40% of the top ranking titles in the top 20. It's never happened before. And, I think, again, VR will be that on steroids.
Any other thoughts? So here's my question on this. VR may not be ready for Hollywood, but let's assume it is. Is Hollywood ready for VR? And I'd like you to talk about, all of you are carving out great niches, and you're working with IP holders, Morris, but this is a team of 3 people and Morris who have really figured out a way to embed themselves meaningfully in innovation within a studio system. My question to you is, I feel that like Hollywood has an org chart problem to fix before this takes off. Could you speak to that?
Well, I can tell you where we live. It'll be interesting to see where Peter lives on his, and I know a little bit where Brad lives. Brad and I are good buddies. We spent a lot of time. We're both archers, actually, interestingly enough. Where Fox certainly is a very big organization, of course, and it's siloed, as many big organizations are. What we've discovered about this VR phenomenon is it is breaking down boundaries, and it has become completely cross-divisional. So this thing that started out with me working with the president of post-production at Fox, as that was kind of where we dropped into, well, put VR in here and we'll see what happens, has now become everybody from all over the studio is kind of saying, okay, there's this group over in this bunker doing this crazy stuff. We need to go meet them. And now we're doing stuff for Fox Television, both Big Fox TV and FX, Fox Interactive, Fox Sports, Big Fox Movies, Fox Searchlight, and Fox News. So we're essentially, it is the opposite of what you might think. The technology has become so interesting to so many people that they're looking for a little bit of a divining rod. They're looking for someone to at least help them and guide them and show a little bit of what we've learned without ever trying to give the impression that we're the experts on anything, because we're not. We're just the explorers and the learners. And that's worked out really well to create this level of excitement and interest in this new medium that has crossed all boundaries and become this kind of new like summer camp at Fox, where everybody wants to come and hang out with us. And that's why my life's so fun.
So Brad, are you a camp counselor?
I have some friends in the room who might agree. I would say this: it's not hard to sell people on VR. Like on the concept of, is it good? Is it amazing? You just put their head in it. I mean, realistically, if you've got a good experience, especially if it's around an IP that you happen to already own, you make something and you show them, you're like, okay, I get it. Okay, how do we turn this into a business? Where is all this coming? Where are the platforms? How do you enable? All those questions, naturally come. But when it comes to the creative individuals, when it comes to even the accounting department, I mean, we honestly we made early demos and then went across the entire section of the company and got people from every department to try this stuff to get everybody on board. And we went to Jeffrey and tried it, and then took them to Oculus and try their stuff. And it's like, this is important, and we get it. It's a long road. I mean, it's been a couple of years now getting to the point where we are now. And all of this is accelerating at an amazing pace. And I know a lot of this audience is far more on the live action side. So I'm going to show you a couple of things here real quick. So this tiny little thing is a Ricoh Theta camera. When you talk about is Hollywood ready and can shoot stuff, you've got at the two extremes, you've got Ted's red cameras in these big rigs that are amazing, that can do stuff like the Wild, that are like absolutely the highest end experiences, and they're beautiful. All the way down to this tiny little camera on this tripod that you can pick up for $300 at Amazon, and you press the one button on the side and it takes 360 photos and videos. That's it. Like, it's gotten that easy. So if you have an idea for something that you want to test in VR and shoot something, for $300, you have your camera rig and you can go press record and test it at your own studio and see if it works and show it to somebody and say, look, we just made VR. We just, while, in between shots on set, we put this thing here and we had somebody do a scene. I mean, we've been doing prototyping and previs this way for a long time. And it's important that you actually go do that, by the way, because it shouldn't just be like the three of us up here and the 3 or 4 other studios we know who are actively trying to get there. If we need to be a united front as studios all actually making stuff, because that helps validate the market and helps get our side of this moved forward.
Yeah, I mean, just to comment as far as maybe to go back to your org chart scenario, it's like this requires a different way of thinking about things. We have some of the greatest talented directors in the world coming to the studio constantly, and we don't tell stories with close-ups and pushing in and doing things. We tell stories in a different way, in a 360 way. So in agreement with what you're saying of just kind of experimenting, but a ground-up studio that can experiment and it doesn't have any boundaries to how they create things, and a different way of thinking about things is probably going to be.
So it's an education process.
That may be
right?
the way to go.
Same for you, Peter. Education.
That's freaking me out because I play Portal and it looks like a turret from Portal.
Doesn't it? I know.
It does.
So no, it really does.
And have you done the
Thank you.
Valve version of Portal, which
Have
is
you
the
done
most
the
amazing
HTML?
thing
Yeah, no,
of all time?
we're partnering with them.
You
So
know,
we,
right?
yeah,
So you're it, right.
So
we did
good.
that.
Have you announced any IP that you're partnering with them?
We have not, but we will soon.
Good.
So our org chart is honestly myself, Daniel Engelhardt, who works with me, who's our director of VR. And he's somewhere in here. He's the guy you should follow up with after this. But it's I honestly feel, and for myself, with a pretty entrepreneurial background, it was very left of center for Lionsgate even to embrace someone like myself within their environment. But I think it's pretty conducive to playing in an arena like VR and AR, where it's a wonderful thing when the younger creators that we work with, and some of them are writing, producing, and directing, north of $100 million features. 25 minutes into any conversation with them, they're like, okay, so what can I be doing in this new medium that's not peripheral or derivative or tangential to this bigger shiny thing over here? They want it to be as fundamental and foundational, and that is where the rubber will hit the road, right? So it's not a hobby for them. It's they're younger, of a younger generation, so they're growing up consuming this way. So it's not just a kind of novelty to them. They want to be on the front lines of it. And so we're pushing really hard to bring them, the cherriest of opportunities, both again within our IP catalog and or exploring original IP, that in the near, medium, long term will be monetizable, consumable, experiences.
These are great answers. I think it's a great opportunity to start taking some questions. So you had your hand up first.
So, Bruce Greenberg, I'm going to be moderating the panel tomorrow on AR, VR, the 5-year outlook. One of the questions I have in the panel follows up with some of the same thoughts, which is from the studio's perspective, and Ted, this is probably best for you because you're kind of crossing the boundaries. It seems like mostly everybody, and Brad specifically, had some conversations, it's very siloed in terms of the way everybody's working. So for instance, a little company out of Korea called CJ Corporation already created the opportunity for all of us to fly with, the dragons and How to Train Your Dragon 2. For those people who got to go to 4DX Theater, it was amazing. That picture was absolutely amazing. And you didn't just fly for 80 seconds, you flew for the whole, every time they were out.
Mm-hmm.
So like home video, is there going to be a process because of Barco's estate? Obviously, there's now ScreenX from
Yep.
the same company.
Yep. CJCGV. Yep.
Is there going to be an opportunity where now we're going to put together, 3D audio, Barco escape? It's your 180 when you're at the theater, and then we're going to add the 180 from behind, so that when you go to home video, you're in the middle of it all, and it all translates, somehow into a home entertainment experience versus what the experience was at, when you're in the theater.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, so we haven't really tackled the home video part of it. We're just cutting our teeth on how do we transform the cinema into a more modern theme park style, much more entertaining, much more compelling experience. And it is a topic of discussion and thought as to how and when does it translate into a home experience? Because eventually everything moves into a home environment, right? That's just the nature of the beast of entertainment and what it is. But the initiative as to where it sits today on the Immersive Cinema Project is to find the separation point between the home experience and the let's go to the movies experience. So that's where the focus is today. It'll probably evolve and mature as the format matures, but we're just in the earliest experimentation days. But some big things have happened, right? So Jerry Bruckheimer is now on board to make projects in this immersive cinema project, and Fox has a 5-year deal now with multi-titles, and there's more stuff coming. So it's out of its first experimentation and into the real world of it's going to be an exhibition deliverable. But I can tell you that our conversations are mostly focused on what is it to create and compel the audience to get off their couch and put their shoes on and go do something together. That's what we're focused on right now.
So from my perspective, adapting something for VR isn't just putting a 360 camera in. Adapting something for VR is the equivalent of adapting a novel for a film. Is that you have screenwriters, you have a team of people that take what is already an amazing story in an amazing medium, and they create their vision and their version of it in a new medium that is a very different medium. I think taking film to VR is as much work to do it well as it does. The CJ experience is a 5D experience. It's wind, it's shaky seats, it's that kind of stuff. It's a lot of fun, but you can't control the narrative. You can't fly the dragon through the arches. You can't do any of those things. We adapted elements of the film to make an immersive experience where you're in control. We turn you into our main character Hiccup and you look down and we have the full production res quality character. And, like the shoulder pad had, I was a little techno, but had 40,000 polygons and 4K textures. Like it's the most high res shoulder pad anyone's ever made, because why would you ever need one that high res? But it's because it's right there. And you need to see all the detail in it. So, it's that is very different from just making it an immersive cinema. We've been working a lot, though, with our Super Cinema platform on how do we adapt traditional content into enhanced versions for VR and home. And we've been working on a pipeline and a tool chain to do exactly that. So, but that's different than a experience that's authored directly for VR. But I think it would be foolish for anyone to forget the fact that we have over 100 years of amazing content and a new delivery platform coming, and we're going to want to resell all that content again.
Yes, one more quote. No, a few more questions. Yes.
Hi, Greg with B-Sky. I actually have 2 questions. Brad, one is, you said you had 10,000 people on How to Train Your Dragon, learned a lot of lessons. Just share a couple of those lessons with us. And the second part is, I haven't heard anyone really talk about Spielberg directing Ready Player One.
Yeah, baby.
That's like
DreamWorks Studios.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our
Yep.
2-year time frame. And how will that affect all of this?
So people are way harder on hardware than I ever expected. There's a reason so much stuff at Disneyland is made out of concrete and cast iron. It really is. So we had, 100-pound people breaking half an inch of ABS plastic clean in half because they were flying the dragon and they were diving hard towards the water, and they went to pull up and they're pulling up so hard they actually snapped the hardware clean in half. And we have video of them holding the broken joystick up in the air going like this, trying to figure out why the dragon's not flying anymore, just wires hanging from it. So early installations, we learned a lot. We moved into half-inch thick wood and steel, just to really reinforce the stuff, because when you're in there, it becomes so real and you feel real emotions. It's like, I'm going to hit the water. So that was some of the early stuff we learned. We also learned that some of the early foam could take off makeup. So the foam, so they pull it off and they'd have a ring of where'd the makeup go. So thankfully lots of improvements in that area. But those are some of the kind of interesting ones that we found along the way.
That's great. Who's got a question for Morris or Peter? Go for it.
As content developers,
Could you speak up a little bit?
yeah, as content developers, does it enter your mind on what the delivery constraints might be for the best experiences that you could create? Whether they'll be 100 megabytes or 15 gigabytes, and what the environment that we all live in as far as data is concerned, or data consumption, how that will limit you as content developers to be very economical or to forget about certain things altogether.
We give that a lot of thought, and our entire production pipeline is based on that. So we shoot extremely high res, and then we have tools that can push it to every possible platform. So just the same way you encode a video, we can code it to play back in mobile or play back in, we're big cardboard VR fans. So we make experiences that work really well on the highest, newest Gear VR S version. And then we also shoot stuff out to cardboard. But so the idea is to try to hit as many possible distribution pipelines as possible by not, without spending a fortune, making something that's easily pushed to all the different platforms. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Let's do 2 more burning questions and then we'll call it a day. Yes.
Rob from Panorama. I've been directing panoramic movies for about 5 years. I direct more than 100 so far, from clients from Petrobras up to IBM. But what we have today, let's face it, it's just hacked cameras. That's what we do, right? We hack Red Camera Go. We hack GoPro cameras. Not seen yet. Rico is doing a pretty good job at Rico Data. It's good, but it's not there yet, right? So I would like to hear more about you. Perhaps maybe you came from Red Camera, right? So is there any movement? I know about Lytro they're doing, but is there any movement like a big player thinking about virtual reality cameras?
Yes, there's a huge push towards virtual reality cameras. And on the immersive cinema side, that is now becoming very real because Red has an 8K sensor now that's coming out very soon. Arri has what they call their 65 millimeter ultra high res sensor. So we can actually fill that much image with a single camera. You don't have to use 3 cameras. It's also great that you can strap 3 GoPros on someone's head and they're each 4K and you can capture 4K motion. And we've done that with base jumping and we've done it with skiing and it's phenomenal. And you're at a theme park in your local multiplex. So that's real, that's happening. That's not my futurist role, that's my yesterday role. That's happening right now. In terms of where the future is going, there is a huge effort from multiple companies of different levels that are experimenting with the right camera for VR. Because the right camera for VR is not 25 GoPros linked together. It is not. It's what we deal with today. But there is absolutely movement in that direction. And I'm involved in quite a lot of that, touching a lot of that.
I think if we move away from the thought of it as just being a camera, for one, it's going to be a combination of 3D scanning and depth and all kinds of things that really eventually bring us to what ultimately becomes the VR capture system. But it's worth noting that, so there was some news that broke about 3 hours ago, which is GoPro actually acquired a company called Color. Color's been around for 10 years. They make the highest end stitching software you can generally get for doing stitching in VR. So if there's any doubt that GoPro is incredibly aware of 360 video and its potential and where it's going, that's gone now.
That writing's been on the wall for a while, but now it's
here for a long time.
Okay, one more burning, brilliant question. The pressure is on. Let's go for it.
Thank you, gentlemen. Great panel as always. We're talking about a technology for consumers, but fundamentally, most of these consumers are not going to get their hands on this technology for 2 years, 3 years.
I would beg to differ.
No. But we have a heavy hint here. We have a presentation here tomorrow talking about the out-of-home entertainment. And to be honest, gentlemen, most of the lessons that have been learned in the short term come from promotional applications of this technology. Out-of-home entertainment is where it's going to be seen by the majority of the people out here. Where do you feel you're going to be putting your money in the short term compared to the long term?
Good question.
I think you do all of them at once. I think it's the only way to pick the right one, right? Like I just gave out 400 cardboards on Friday. I'm a big fan of them. They're really fun. But it's true. We've done location entertainment, we've done mobile, we've done stuff on the Gear VR and with the DreamWorks VR platform. I think none of them are wrong, and I think all of them are right. So I think you just have to be prepared to try to do something on everything because it's also the way to have the most fun.
Listen, it's such a privilege having all of you up here. I know you're very busy, and that I promised this audience a dream team panel, and didn't they deliver? Round of applause. Have a good night, everyone.